what do you say to those who say Rolly Romero jumped the line and gets a world title shot in his first fight here at 140?
I mean, I get special privileges. That's all I can say.
Sin City, this coming Saturday, a triple header of fights.
He took this fight 1 month after Puella fight, got the title away from me. Now he's stripped up the title. You know, it is what it is.
A couple years ago, my name wasn't even in this conversation. I don't ever want to lead this conversation again.
I'm well aware that I'm fighting against a hungry young lion.
I have a lot of respect for Rances, but he's just in my way.
Now we get to the main event.
Barroso's a much better fighter than Puella. He can actually crack. I'm just a bit of a shit talker, you know? This ain't a shit talking fight.
You're going to see a battle between two warriors that are very hungry to become a world champion.
I mean, I've always been humble. I think. No?
Dreams can come true no matter how old you are.
Looks like our fighters are ready to step onto the scale. 139 1/4 pounds for Sims. 138 3/4 pounds for Batyr Akhmedov. Omar Juarez. 142 1/4 pounds. 142 1/2 pounds for Rances Barthelemy. 139 1/2 pounds for Ismael Barroso. 139 1/2 pounds for Rolando Romero.
What can you guarantee they're going to get Saturday night?
Fireworks.
Las Vegas, the fight capital of the world, the backdrop for tonight's Showtime Championship Boxing triple header and the return of one of the biggest punchers and most notorious stars in the sport, Rolando "Rolly" Romero. Welcome on in to Showtime Boxing Countdown. My name is Brian Campbell. This is Luke Thomas. We are the hosts, of course, of the Showtime Sports digital award-winning series, Morning Combat. And Luke Thomas, we've got a triple header this evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 in the West on Showtime. And it's for the vacant 140-pound WBA world title when Rolly Romero takes on Ismael Barroso. We'll be setting the stage as we build toward this triple header. We'll have 3 fights of our own to call. But Luke Thomas, we're talking about a career-long layoff for one Rolly Romero, who's moving up in weight from lightweight now to 140 pounds. I know the fan I am. When Rolly appears, I got to be there. The guy can crack just the same, though.
He could definitely crack, and this is an interesting test for him. I know a lot of folks inside the boxing community are saying, listen, I know Rolly Romero's probably the bigger star of the two. He's coming off the Tank Davis fight. He lost, but that was obviously a big, huge contest in the sport. Barroso is a live dog here, but the guy who's kind of attracting attention, right? First fight at 140, already in a world title contest. The original opponent he was supposed to have got replaced. Here comes Barroso. All eyes are kind of on Rolando Romero, but BC, I have to tell you, sort of throwing it back at you, what's kind of interesting to me is there definitely is attention on Romero. I'm not sure it's all positive attention. Not going to be honest. Listen, what you can do in this sport is you can be the kind of person that everyone looks up to as a hero and they want to see you for those reasons, or you can do the exact opposite. And up to this point, I would say Romero's done everything he possibly could to get everyone to dislike him. What has been interesting to me, though, is that heading into this contest, even at the press conference, you did not see any of the trash talking that Romero had in full display against Tank Davis. Much more reserved, quite complimentary, in fact, of Barroso. So a really interesting moment here for Romero. Is he growing up? Is he graduating to something new? He says he's matured. I guess we're going to find out.
We should find out tonight in a fight in which both fighters had said, look, expect fireworks. But whether you love the comedy of Rolly Romero or not.
Comedy, that word's doing a lot of heavy lifting when you say it that way.
I tend to be one of the few who look at the comedic genius behind the scenes of one Rolly Romero and chuckle a bit. But for all his charisma, as we talked about, he can thump, moving up to weight to 140, a division he felt like he should have been in all along. It was a hard weight cut down to 135 for when he did take on Gervonta Tank Davis in his last outing, was knocked out, but has learned so much coming back in tonight, specifically patience. That's the name of the game this evening for Rolly Romero. We're going to continue to build here from our Jersey City studios, the foundation until the start of tonight's triple header, 9 p.m. in the East. And like we mentioned, we've got a trio of interesting fights that'll be starting just in a few moments inside the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. One of the better rising boxing venues, by the way. No bad seats in the house.
Not just boxing. There are MMA fights that take place there now. It's actually kind of growing a little bit. Not for the biggest Vegas attractions. But for the kind of insider ones, the kind of hardcore boxing or MMA fan, definitely Cosmo's starting to make a few waves in the
question
industry.
about it. We'll have so much more for you on how this Romero-Barroso fight was put together, last-minute change. But here we are for the vacant WBA 140-pound title. And a reminder, if you don't have Showtime and you're set to miss out on tonight's triple header, don't do that. Here's what you need to do. Get Showtime right now by going to Showtime.com, or you can start a 7-day free trial of Showtime with Paramount Plus right now for free for 1 month, $11.99 per month. After that, go to Paramount.com/Showtime for more information. Our trio of fights, Luke, are going to kick off with, how about this, just the second pro fight for young 18-year-old Justin Valoria, who just happens to be the nephew of the great Hawaiian punch himself, former U.S. Olympian Brian Valoria. He'll be kicking off in tonight's Showtime Boxing Countdown opener, an 8-round super featherweight bout against Pedro Pinillo. And Luke, well, I may have butchered Pedro's last name.
You did, yeah.
We'll be working on that throughout the evening. But how about the confidence in young Justin Valoria, who's got that boxing family and that name, but seems like he wants to carve out his own niche here.
Yeah, it looks like a guy who has taken the influence from his family, which, by the way, not just in boxing. His dad was a Muay Thai fighter as well. So he comes from pretty great combat sports lineage. Only has the one fight prior, so this is the second one here. We don't have a lot of tape on him. But when we spoke to him this week heading into this contest, full of confidence, full of his belief in adaptability, full of belief in his ability to really just work through this opponent without much issue. Now, the other opponent we have here, or excuse me, this opponent that he has here, Pinillo, would be the correct pronunciation. His significantly more experience coming out of Cali, Colombia, so we don't exactly know how valuable that experience is. We're going to get a better test for both gentlemen here tonight.
Just the second pro fight for Justin Valoria against a 6-fight veteran in Pedro Pinillo out of Colombia.
So that word is just beating you up, isn't it?
Pinillo.
Pinillo.
Yeah,
Pinillo or Pinillo, either way.
It was all easy all around. See, there you go right there. We'll be throwing it down to the ring very shortly as we continue to build to tonight's main event in this growing and star-studded 140-pound division.
I'm excited about the 140-pound division. You know, we saw some people start trickling up, and now there's a bunch of them moving all of a sudden. Tonight, by the way, the opener on the main card, we'll talk about this later, could serve as the winner of that, gets the winner of the main event. So there's a lot of big stakes on the line here tonight.
Batyr, Akhmedov taking on Kenneth Sims Jr. in the opener of tonight's triple header. But this is the first of 3 prelim offerings from us here on the Showtime Boxing Countdown Show. Round 1, Justin Valoria taking on Pedro Pinillo.
That's it.
There we go. We are on a roll there.
Two southpaws.
This will be a 6th-round contest in the super featherweight division, 130 pounds. As you see, Valoria in the white trunks, the black gloves, a native of Whittier, California. Of course, both his father, uncle, in fact, both sides of his family coming from Hawaii.
A left hand already got through for Valoria, where he got his head off the center line going at the same time as Pinillo, and it got through.
Valoria putting on the pressure early. Just 18 years old, as we mentioned, but we talked to him this week. Despite just one pro bout up to this point, the confidence is there. Let's see how he can do against a young veteran himself in Pinillo.
Boy, a minute in, they're just standing in front of each other, trading here a little bit.
It is the Valoria family style to make fun fights and make it happen, as you're seeing that from young Justin here.
Some trunk movement from Pinillo to draw out some of the attacks there from Valoria. By the way, a right hand got through for Pinillo, and there's a couple of lefts kind of strafing over the top as well.
This fight largely being contested in the center of the ring as both fighters digging in. Good right hook to the body there from Valoria.
Ooh.
Sweeping left hand may have hurt Pinillo.
Pinillo heavy on that front leg, just kind of leaning into some of these punches. I would say not quite enough defense for that stance to be the appropriate choice here. And he eats 2 uppercuts for it right on cue.
Pinillo, just 22 years old, out of Cali, Colombia. See if he can make it out of the first round here against a very aggressive Justin Valoria. Good left hand and the right on the combo to briefly stagger Pinillo, who does seem to have his legs under him.
Barely.
Love the aggression early on here, Luke.
Yeah, these guys are, I mean, this is a sprint through the first round. I realize it's not a long fight with only 6 rounds, but the pace here has been significant.
Our first of 3 bouts here on the Showtime Boxing Countdown Show. The Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas is the venue. As you see Justin Valoria in the white trunks.
There just isn't nearly enough defensive responsibility from Pinillo. You can see him leaning over like that. Hands are still down. He doesn't have a high guard. And it'd be one thing if he were presenting the target and then removing it with significant head or trunk or shoulder movement, but he's just really not.
Valoria not showing a ton of respect for the punching power of Pinillo as they landed hard hooks at the same time. Good first round in terms of both feeling each other out and getting into the action early.
Ooh.
Stiff jabs from Valoria as round 1 comes to a close.
Easy round to score. Valoria doing by far the better work, although he got tagged a little bit there as well. We should be honest about it. But again, his second pro fight, that's to be expected. His opponent, I think, had 6 or 7 fights coming into this contest. So already, though, I think you've seen pretty great things from Valoria. Here's that right hand. He kind of rolls through to anticipating the hook. Tight punches here in combination. Kind of head hunting a little bit. Maybe you could mix it up, but still certainly putting Pinillo on the back foot and those jabs getting through as well. There he is framing and then going a left hand. Not moving at the end of it, which is why the left hook from Pinillo got through, but still there's one person kind of dictating the offense here and then one person responding, and then you can see the difference.
1 round complete in the super featherweight bout. As we mentioned, Justin Valoria, his father Dominic in his corner as head trainer, former kickboxer and boxer himself. But his uncle, Brian Valoria, someone we know very well in the boxing game, retired in 2018, former U.S. Olympian from the state of Hawaii and multi-time world champion. Here's round 2 for Justin Valoria and Pedro Pinillo in the red trunks. Pinillo, 5-1 record himself coming in. Did suffer the first loss of his pro career, Pinillo, last April. That came in Mexico, a 4-round majority decision loss to Alejandro Garcia.
Well, they're starting to just play tag here.
Counter right hands from Valoria. Again, not afraid to feel the power of Pinillo and stand in and counter back.
Yeah, you can see why right away Valoria is getting a much better clear sense of range, putting Pinillo at the end of his punches by and large. He did need the left hand there, but the jab is working for him. And you can see him kind of roll a little bit when the right hand comes through.
We did ask Pinillo about that first loss last time out last April. He said, when you aren't fighting at home, you are 2 to 3 points behind. He was aware of that situation. He calls the loss, it is what it was his exact quote about that loss. See if he can win over the judges this evening.
Pinillo having some good moments here with some straight punches. You can see now he's presenting a target and finally moving it rather than just sort of staying there. And when he throws the hooks kind of wide without much setup or feinting, yeah, Valoria gets out of the way. Some of the straight punches are having some effect getting through.
Left to the chin from Valoria and another one. Unloading with power shots. Valoria, though, giving Pinillo a chance to strike back. Coming up on 1 minute to go here in round 2.
Boy, I got to tell you, Valoria doing definitely his best work when he can get Pinillo right up against the ropes where he's got him now.
Looked like Pinillo's glove may have touched the canvas. Referee Thomas Taylor allowing the action to continue. And they are throwing punches here. Good body shots from Pinillo, trying to answer back with uppercuts.
Yeah, I just don't like this style for him. He's having much better success with linear punches combined with movement, right? You see him rolling, and then usually if he can get his feet moving as well, changing angles, not staying in the same place, that actually has been pretty successful for him. But when he gets this, phone booth fighting, head-to-head, chest-to-chest almost, I just feel like Valoria, he appears to be the stronger of the two.
Pinillo wasn't that concerned about Valoria's family name or history, saying, in the end, I do what I do inside the ring, and it's up to Valoria to make those adjustments. I haven't necessarily seen adjustments from Valoria. I've just seen full-on volume punching and walking his opponent down.
This round is much more competitive. See what I mean? When he touches and moves, he actually has a little bit more success. In fairness, Valoria, again, we want to be clear, this is his second pro fight, but he doesn't move his head a lot either from what we've seen thus far. A guy who's got decent speed, good timing, a little bit of movement, can do something with that. I think the results speak for themselves in that regard.
Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell here with you in Jersey City on the call. The action you're seeing inside the ring in the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. The first of our 3 bouts here on Showtime Boxing Countdown, all building, of course, to the start of tonight's triple header, 9 p.m. Eastern, when Rolando Romero and Ismael Barroso meet for the vacant WBA world title at 140 pounds. You like a lot what you see from young Viloria, but certainly I like what you said there about the lack of head movement, the willingness to absorb punishment. He knows what his name brings to this game. He knows what opportunities like this, a 6-round fight in just his second pro bout, the chance to get that big showcase knockout and announce yourself. You like to see a little bit more poise and patience in getting off his punches, though.
Again, this isn't relatively speaking, this is a very experienced opponent. I can understand why breaking through some of those early challenges would be difficult.
Boy, the aggressor early on with that jab. Good counter shots, though, by Pinillo, and a left over the top slip through.
That left hook is money. I think Pinillo is proving himself to be a more worthy adversary than perhaps Viloria was expecting. When we spoke to Viloria, he definitely wasn't dismissing him. I just don't know if he fully recognized the threat.
I mentioned Viloria had grown up in Whittier, California. He said he was next-door neighbors with rising young MMA star Aaron Pico, who, of course, has backgrounds in all disciplines of combat sports, including boxing, where he's put in time in the Wildcard Gym under Freddie Roach in Los Angeles. How about sharpening iron in the neighborhood pickup games there, Luke?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Also a Showtime fighter because he competes for Bellator MMA.
Aaron Pico at one point called the biggest prospect in the history of MMA. Let's see what young 18-year-old Justin Viloria can do with his own hype here in his second pro fight.
Well, I'll tell you what I like from Viloria. He's well-balanced, right? He has his feet under him. You don't see him reaching too much. You don't see him kind of have to catch himself as he rolls or he throws. He got pushed there, but in general, when he is attacking, he's got his weight under him. But defensively, there's some questions about that low right hand at times, as well as the lack of head or trunk movement. Good right hand, two good right hands from Viloria, getting in between the punches of Pinillo.
Fast and furious action once again here in round 3. You see the nickname of Pinillo, Buffalo, on the waist right there.
That's right.
Is that translated to Buffalo?
It is, yeah. And he spells it correctly. That's how they spell it, so. Good right hand. I like it when Viloria's throwing in combination. First 2 don't get through, the third tends to.
All that wealth of experience in the family name. Justin Viloria told us the advice he gets from dad and uncle, don't get comfortable. It's a game of consistency. Consistency is what it takes to be great. So see if Viloria can continue to work behind that jab. Although Pinillo's certainly in this fight, Luke.
Well, I would say Viloria's kind of gotten away from the jab this round a little bit. You're seeing some elements of it. It's a little smothered. There's a lead hook. I think when he was sitting things up off that jab, and again, I like the body punching we see a little bit there. I definitely like the combination punching. I just like to see him start working the jab a little bit more. He's got a good one, and it's landing. There's at the end of the round. You finally get to see a little bit of it.
3 rounds in the book here in this 130-pound bout, scheduled for 6 rounds. As young Justin Viloria, in just as we mentioned, his second pro fight. Here's a look back at the action in round 3. That lead right hook was money.
Beautiful. Well-timed. Caught him in between his steps on the half beat. There's another one in between his punches. So that's just excellent timing and location and placement. All of these. You can see Viloria, a well-schooled, well-trained young fighter, working on some things, but he's got some clear ability. You got timing like that, boy, you can do something with it.
Viloria turned pro in April of this year, came at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California on the undercard of Sebastian Fundora's upset knockout loss to Brian Mendoza. Finished off Za'Darius Smith in the first round. But Viloria told us he's been sparring pro boxers with championship experience since he was 16. Mm-hmm. So this experience, this showcase opportunity this evening, doesn't seem like it's the lights being too bright for young Justin Viloria.
Also, I think that last round was a better round for him. Getting back on that jab, you see, and putting combinations together. Boy, I like that.
Furious left crosses being thrown by Valoria.
Yeah, it looks to me like his corner told him to get back on the jab between rounds.
Valoria told us he felt after watching tape of Pinillo that he wouldn't have a lot of issues here. He was confident that his boxing skills and also his size would ultimately take over.
Yeah, now he's starting to really cook. He had a right to the body, then right over the top and back-to-back. Look at that lead right hook for Valoria. Starting to do some good work, especially when he's mixing it up with the jab. Again, also, BC, where does he do his best work? Where do you see Pinillo hurt the most? Right up against the ropes.
Absolutely. Less than 2 minutes to go here in round 4. Pro fight number 2 for 18-year-old Justin Valoria. He's largely been the aggressor, and he's dealt fine with the counter shots of Pedro Pinillo. Valoria said he got into amateur wrestling as a young kid, but once he put on the boxing gloves, he felt it. This was the direction his career would be headed, and he may have Pinillo hurt here as he chips away with big power shots.
Yeah, that's it.
Referee Thomas Taylor has seen enough. It'll go down as a 4th round TKO as 18-year-old Justin Valoria, now 2-0 with 2 knockouts in his young pro career.
Gotta say, I don't mind that stoppage at all. In fact, I think it's pretty good. I was just about to say, when you noted it, you're not seeing at that point Pinillo throw back hardly at all. He was kind of stumbling around and just taking it. And again, we're talking about a guy in his 7th fight and a guy in his 2nd pro fight. The referee is just going to be a little bit more aggressive about looking out for their health than they would be if it was a 12-round contest. So, to me, completely justified, BC.
The nickname is chosen. That's what Justin Valoria feels he has been for this sport. The family history, but he looks good through 2 pro fights. You'd like him to work on some head movement, maybe not be willing to take as much shots in return, but he knew he was the bigger fighter. He knew he had the technical advantages, and the speed and power seemed to be in his side as well.
Honestly, once he got back on that jab and started throwing in combination with stuff he was building in the round previously, he gets back to it, closes the show with it. You're right, there are some defensive issues to work on, again, through 2 pro fights. Of course there's going to be. It's totally understandable. But we look back at what he did well in this contest. The timing, right? Listening to his corner, the accuracy. There's just a lot of really great, strong boxing skill for that young man to build on.
Let's look back at the finish here from Justin Valoria in round 4.
Look at that, using frames, short hooks. That right hook was money in the last couple of rounds. You can see him landing cleanly, and that was why the referee stepped in, just accepting punishment without really throwing back.
Good tan game there for referee Thomas Taylor, just the same, Luke.
My man's been at the weight room a little bit, huh?
California-based, of course, but good punching here from Valoria to force that stoppage.
Very fair, very fair. And I'll say this, too, about Valoria. He had to earn it. He had to earn it. This was not an opponent who just looked out of shape, who just was there for a paycheck. He was there to win. He had more experience than his opponent, and didn't matter in the end. Great win by Justin Valoria.
Brian Campbell, Luke Thomas back with you. We are the co-hosts of Morning Combat, the award-winning Showtime digital series every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is our studio in Jersey City, but we're here to set the stage and build toward tonight's triple header, 9 p.m. Eastern, Showtime Championship Boxing. And this marks the return, as we mentioned, of Rolando Romero. Luke, for somebody that's never seen this man fight or even talk on a microphone, how do you describe Rolly's place in the boxing game today?
Well, that's a great question. Part goofball, part 1980s movie high school bully, part absolute dynamite punching power from this guy. And also, I think, here's the reality. He's a work in progress.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of funny. If you look at his fights before the Tank Davis fight, you might say, okay, he's definitely got big power, but Tank is just too much of a counterpuncher. And in the end, of course, he was. But I bring this up to say, if you look at the Tank Davis fight with Rolly, the first 5 rounds or so, the fight ended in the 6th, I believe. Boy, Rolly was patient. He was, in many of those cases, winning the rounds. Certainly having Tank thinking through problems longer than you ordinarily see Tank think through problems in certain cases. Like just actually making a very strong account of himself. We're not talking about a guy with like a long amateur background. He doesn't have 100 or 200 fights or anything like that. He didn't get started in boxing until he was 17. BC, to this day, he only has 15 total pro fights. So I think he learned a lesson about getting a little bit in front of his skis when he fought Tank Davis. It was a really, I'm not going to say humiliating, because he actually overperformed, I think, to certain people's expectations, but a bit of a comeback to earth moment about what he was good at and also what he had to work on. As I mentioned before this week, he's actually been very professional. He's been really quite complimentary of his opponent. He understands his opponent can also crack. So what would I say? Expect a guy with big power who we know sometimes fights a little recklessly, but I'm looking to see if today is going to be one of those opportunities for him to really show the growth and future of what some people think is a championship future for him.
Yeah, the son of a 3-time Cuban national boxing champion is Rolando Romero. Grew up in Las Vegas, 27 years old. But how we got to tonight's fight is interesting. Romero was originally scheduled to face full WBA super lightweight world title holder Alberto Puello. Puello popped for a banned PED clomiphene in a test administered by VADA, but does seem to have a story in the fact that him and his wife were undergoing treatment to try to have children. The treatment worked as his wife is pregnant, but they found clomiphene in that. He will be appealing it. So as we stand right now, Puello was pulled from the fight, named the champion in recess, and the full vacant title will be on the line. Romero taking on 40-year-old Ismael Barroso. And Luke, the native of Venezuela, can sure crack in Barroso, but he was originally the mandatory opponent for Puello, was willing to take step-aside money, was expected to be on this undercard, but called into action. Rolly Romero said, look, I may have a more dangerous opponent because of that punching power.
Dude, this is the craziest story. He's 40 years old. He's been the mandatory for this title since December of 2019. And so I am glad, actually, that a guy who has waited this long is getting that opportunity. Also, as BC said, listen, Barroso has been stopped, including to the body before. It's not to say that his record is perfect, but if there is one common denominator in all of his contests, that dude can absolutely lower the boom on his opponents and has done it for a long time. So certainly he has, in case of Rolando Romero, a great youth advantage, and I think that honestly will play a significant role in this fight. But it would just be foolish if you look at all the boxing sites, listen to the boxing bettors. No one is saying that Barroso doesn't have a very solid chance.
Yeah, this should be an interesting fight. A lot of power punches. We'll get to some of those CompuBox show stats that set up that matchup. But we're going to head back to the ring now in Las Vegas, the Cosmopolitan, for fight number 2 of 3 preliminary bouts here on Showtime Boxing Countdown. And we are going to head into the bantamweight division and an 8-round affair as 7-0 Michael Angeletti takes on a veteran of a 20-3 record, Michel Banquez. Luke Thomas, when talking to Michael Angeletti this week ahead of this bantamweight contest, he could not have been more confident. He could not have touted the experience that he took on the amateur route. Originally an Olympic hopeful, was unable to make that work out, but now he's on the pro level, and he believes he's ready to climb quickly in this division.
Yeah, he really leaned on the amateur experience, as you mentioned, noting that he's seen basically every style. He's seen styles from all over the world. We asked him, like, what were you expecting from your opponent? And he's like, basically, it doesn't matter. I can adapt between rounds. I've seen so many looks. Just feel like he's ready. He feels like, anyway, he's ready to make a big push. We shall see with an opponent who, at least in the professional ranks, has significantly more experience.
Angeletti's in the blue trunks, 26 years old, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, ultimately moved to Texas when the hurricane displaced him, which has happened to a bunch of fighters who've relocated. Regis Prograis have relocated in that greater Houston era, now fighting out of Spring, Texas, as Angeletti. But he said, look, I was a medal hopeful. I wanted to represent my country in the Olympics, but he lost in the Olympic trials. Just the outbreak of the COVID pandemic set back the start of his pro career. 7 fights in, he's got 6 stoppages and an unbeaten record here as he takes on a tough veteran in Banquez.
I'm saying it's a feel-out round for Angeletti. Banquez, as you can see, lowering his level and then trying to punch upwards and using overhands and kind of straight jabs to the body to set up that distance closing. Angeletti, pay attention, he is at times galloping into position, which could get him caught when he lands on the front foot, but otherwise I think he's doing a great job working the jab and setting things up now. Now he's beginning to put 1-2s together. Also, a lot of clinching early.
Angeletti fought at 114 pounds in the amateur ranks. Has largely fought at junior featherweight 122 to open his pro career, but he's down at 118 pounds for this contest and believes this is the division for him as a pro moving forward. Of course, the hurricane in question, Hurricane Katrina, back in 2006, which displaced him. The family first moving to the state of Georgia. Once they settled into Houston, we know that growing boxing community down there in H-Town. When we're talking about the Charlos, Regis Prograis, the Figueroa brothers who aren't far away. Of course, Oshaki Foster, who recently captured a world title at 130 pounds on Showtime.
A lot of pressure from Banquez. Not a lot of it necessarily getting through, but certainly forcing defensive answers from Angeletti.
One round complete here. The Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas is the venue. In this bantamweight tilt, Michael Angeletti and Michel Banquez. See if we can get a second look at some of the action here in the opening round. When we're talking about Angeletti, Luke, he is coming off a breakthrough knockout performance there, stopping 7-0 Jeremy Adorno in the 5th round last October. So that was an eye-opening fight for sure for people to take notice of Angeletti coming up the ranks.
Also, he doesn't have a formal nickname, but he says people are starting in the gym and his crew to call him the X-Man. Not in any reference to any Marvel movies or comic books, but rather because he is Xing guys out as he moves up the ranks. So he really is beginning to lean into his own strengths and letting the world know that he intends to make some big waves.
Now, the contracted weight for this bout was officially 119 pounds, which would make it a junior featherweight bout. But as we mentioned, Angeletti looking to campaign at 118 moving forward. First 8-round bout of Angeletti's career. He's gone to the 5th round at least 3 times up to this point.
Let him go.
The referee's wearing gloves. I just want you to know I think that's excellent.
It's safe.
He takes hygiene seriously.
Banquez showing an awkward look to start. You got the wide stance, crouching at the waist.
Yeah, he's starting low and then sort of entering in the final space high. A lot of clinching. To some extent, Angeletti is welcoming it.
Good body shot from Angeletti.
And you can see he's kind of gotten away from the jab a little bit. I wonder if he wants to go back to that. But it's good job by Angeletti not trying to chase the head of him, of Banquez, going to the body significantly. That's going to pay dividends, certainly, as this fight wears on.
Banquez, 32 years old, born in Caracas, Venezuela, now fights out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Does enter this fight on a 2-fight losing skid. He lost a decision to Ramon Cardenas last time out and was stopped in the 6th round by Antonio Vargas. But this fight's more about the experience and test that he can bring, considering Banquez has gone the 10-round distance 4 times and has once fought 12 rounds.
Oh, so this is a hell of a pace from Banquez, no?
I think that's what you want to do when you're in there against a confident younger fighter who's looking to showcase his skills. Make him uncomfortable. Make him work for it.
Yeah, but you can already see Angeletti is starting to get a little more comfortable with the range. You can see he's much better about keeping his lead forearm in between him to set frames. And he's gotten back to the jab after I'd mentioned it earlier. He's been a little bit more diligent with it as the round has worn on, and I think this has been a good round for him. Not so much that he had overwhelming offense, but it looked to me that he's beginning to put those adjustments that he told us he's capable of quickly making into rotation.
Coming up on 20 seconds to go here in round 2 of a scheduled 8, 119-pound catchweight bout. pressure from Banquez late, but Angeletti countering clean.
Some good catch and shooting there from Angeletti.
Good action here between these bantamweights. 2 rounds in the books inside the Cosmo here in Las Vegas. Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell with you on the call here in the Showtime Boxing Countdown as we continue to set the stage for tonight's title bout. And the head of a triple header, 9 p.m. Eastern, Rolly Romero, Ismael Barroso. And Luke, any young fighter that can get into the gym with a former world champion and test themselves, that can be an experience builder. How about Michael Angeletti telling us he sparred with the great one, Guillermo Rigondeaux, to build up to this one? He said
he got the better of it.
He said he did get the better of him. He said his size was ultimately a problem for the aging legend there in Rigo, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist. And he let his hands go, which is something that can be sort of the kryptonite at this point in Rigo's career. If you step in there against him and throw and make him fight, but anytime you can get that type of work for a young fighter, and as we mentioned, no shortage of confidence here for young Michael Angeletti.
No shortage of purpose either. A guy who's got children now, and that's changed his life and given him. He always had a reason to fight, but certainly making the stakes quite clear. And he believes it's steeled him and solidified his purpose.
Banquez pushing the action here to open round 3. Angeletti and his wife Veronica have 2 children, a 2-year-old son, a 1-year-old daughter. And he shouted out his wife saying, she gives me the freedom to be the shape that I'm in as a fighter and to put in the work. But look, 2 kids under 2, you're going to have a busy household.
Yeah. Not going to be a ton of sleeping in a house like that. Boy, what a grinding affair through 3 rounds thus far.
Phone booth fighting from these 2 practitioners.
Again, I appreciate Angeletti's versatility. I think he's telling the truth when he speaks to his ability to play the levels. This is working for him. That left hook was nice. There it is again. He pushes him with the straight and then finishes with the hook. Nevertheless, I still think a little bit at range is where he's going to land without having to wrestle through to catch opportunities.
Closing in on the midway point of round 3. Angeletti in the blue trunks. Banquez in the red gloves as they continue to trade at close range.
I got to say also, Angeletti's technique it just appears to be much smoother. You see that right hook nearly found the mark. Just missed for Angeletti. Oof.
Angeletti wasn't too worried about the threat of Banquez, saying, I've been in the ring before with other champions who are way bigger and more skilled. Angeletti said the experience would be the difference, even though we hyped up the detailed advantage in terms of pro experience that Banquez brings into it. Angeletti was quick to let us know on the amateur level, he's fought all styles all over this globe.
I'll say this for Banquez, really not giving Angeletti a moment to rest. There's a question, like you can see even there's a question about how effective some of the punching is. That overhand would just seemed more like a club. But he is pulling Angeletti into his kind of fight. I still think Angeletti is, for the large part, getting the better of it. But he is forcing him into this position and working tirelessly throughout the entire round.
Good veteranship here from Banquez inside, trying to make this more of a gritty war. And Angeletti giving him the chance to do so. Quick hands on the combination, though, from Angeletti in the closing seconds.
Looks to me like Angeletti's really starting to find his mark. Hard to get through with a guy who is kind of pushing you, leaning on you, attacking the way that Banquez is. But you can see each round Angeletti getting a little bit closer.
Let's look back on the action there. Close range fighting, both landing clean shots. Doesn't look to be a lot of leverage or power on those.
No, but there's a good left hook there from Banquez, but you had missed it previously. You saw a bit of a roll there from Angeletti. He was able to land a right hand all the way through. So he's able to play in that position, kind of catching a little bit, rolling, letting stuff bounce, and then trying to find a response. Again, that stuff's working. It's pretty great. I still think that jab would put him in a different position.
Angeletti's fresh off of 2022 where he was 3-0, all by stoppage. He continues to build his young pro career. He turned pro in 2020, 7-0 with 6 stoppages. But if you're watching someone climb the ranks on this level, you want to see them have to go rounds. You want to see them in there with an opposite style, somebody who's going to bring the pace and pressure. It just seems that Angeletti not afraid to dig in with him.
No, I think Angeletti's out to prove something, right? Angeletti doesn't in any way mind the adversity because if he wins, all that means is all the proving that he has to do. It makes the argument that much stronger. You can see there he is. Angeletti moving a little bit more to start the round. They clinch, but now he turns. There's that jab that I was talking about. And again, you can see him just, he's got a pretty good Philly shell there, to be quite honest with you.
Well, you can see that confidence of Angeletti standing that close. He's not afraid of the punching power of Banquez, but I think even more importantly, he's not giving him a clean strike zone to really load up and land firm.
Definitely not.
See a midriff tattoo on Angeletti jumping up behind the guard there.
Those are painful. I've got a couple of them.
Advised or ill-advised?
Ill-advised. Ill-advised. Yeah, but this is some highly advised, great body work from Angeletti. I'm really appreciating how he's able to find a good defensive space when they're in close. Working behind a bit of a Philly shell, high guard here. Catching stuff, rolling with it. Using it for frames, inside ties. There he is, pushing off on the lead shoulder.
Banquez has played spoiler before. He's got victories over then unbeaten opponents Prince Patel and Johannes Argalagos. You like the aggressiveness and the pace there, but a clean uppercut from Angeletti.
Great uppercut right as he was stepping through. Again, caught him with fantastic timing. I got to tell you, it looks to me, BC, like Angeletti just doesn't really have a ton of respect for the punching power, anyway, of Banquez.
At all. He more or less told us that in the pre-fight interview heading into this.
That was a good right hand.
Angeletti said he believed Banquez had a style he could eat up and expose quickly. He's willing to trade, though, with the veteran fighter. A little bit of a stiff arm from Angeletti to try to keep his opponent down, but we haven't needed much referee intervention, even though this fight has been contested at such close terms.
Tells you about the work the guys are doing on the inside space that the referee can just kind of clap his hands and get them to more or less do what they're supposed to.
Clap his vinyl latex gloves.
Yes, because he takes hygiene seriously.
Final 10 seconds here in the fourth round.
Good right hand. He had to pay for it a little bit. He made a bit of a trade, but that was a nice right hand from Angeletti.
The midway point here in this 8-round contest, 119 pounds of the catch weight, but a spirited affair from both of them, just the same, but you'd have to lean one way. It's got to be the cleaner punching of Angeletti.
It just seems to me like, again, I give him credit. Banquez is making the fight, he's pushing it, right? He's turning it into a grind fest, no doubt about it. But just who's landing the better shots? Some of those uppercuts that got through, the jab when he's using it was getting through. Some of the body work from Angeletti, he's just clearly doing the more punishing, accurate, and respectable work.
The Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, the backdrop there. Very intimate arena.
I've not been to this one yet.
You need to add that there along with the Armory in Minneapolis.
That's the big one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you've been to Dignity Health Sports Park, correct?
No.
Carson Kell,
those are the big three. I know. I'm terrible.
I mean, you've been to Madison Square Garden.
Yes, I've been to Madison Square Garden.
Barclays Center. And round 5 here. Banquez getting off first with the right hand.
So last round, Angeletti started by sticking and moving. Here, you see him getting to like a bit of the 2-punch, 3-punch combination work in close quarters.
First 8-round bout of the young career of Michael Angeletti. He's gone 5 rounds 2 times.
Good job staying off the ropes.
So soon to enter some uncharted territory, but man, I mean, we couldn't say it enough about Angeletti's confidence coming in and His direct quote on that was, "I've been through so much in life that this pressure of boxing is nothing compared to life's pressure." He said not only overcoming Hurricane Katrina in 2006, which displaced him and moves to multiple states, but just the regular journeys of life, the difficulties of the ups and downs of family. Michael Angeletti still standing here as he continues the unbeaten start of his career.
God, just a ton of movement from Banquez through this fight, through this round in particular. I have to say, Banquez doing a little bit better through the first minute in this round. He's definitely got Angeletti a little bit more shelled up and not throwing and not landing with a ton of power and frankly, accuracy thus far in this frame.
Well, Luke, you asked Angeletti who he believes to be the best 118-pound boxer in the world today, and his answer?
Himself. Although he did say he was looking forward to Inoue and Fulton.
Of course, at 122 pounds for the unified title.
Which he says he can also fight there, by the way, Angeletti.
Despite being so young, just 7 pro fights, Angeletti is 26 years old after a lengthy amateur career, and it's something that he talks about a lot in terms of portraying himself as a more mature fighter than your average prospect.
Good body shot. That body shot hurt him. That left to the body from Angeletti really hurt Banquez. There it is again.
Banquez might need to hold here to retain himself, but neither fighter has done much of that this fight.
Look at his right hand. He can't really raise it, and you can see Angeletti going right back to it. That one stung him.
Angeletti swinging hooks from both sides of the body as the right hand connects again. Banquez, I want to say showing a good chin, but a lot of this is to the body, showing the toughness to hang in there. But he is getting picked apart.
I gotta say, pretty veteran resiliency from Banquez. He really didn't just hold that and run. He worked through the punishment there. That was actually quite impressive.
Final 10 seconds as Angeletti slips in a right uppercut again. Banquez is going to make him fight, though, to close this round out.
And you can see Banquez now throwing the right, which tells you he feels a little bit better. I gotta say, Banquez had a case for, winning the round. I don't know, but he was doing better early. But that body shot is what made all the difference for Angeletti.
See if we can see the punch that changed. It was that right uppercut downstairs, landing to the left side of Banquez's body. But
I thought it was a left before that.
Well, either way, lack of holding here, he just toughed it out.
Yeah.
Was able to finish the round there, but if that comes down to be a key turning point, it's certainly that the accumulation of body shots hurt Banquez. Let's see if Angeletti can come out in round 6 and try to take advantage of that.
Again, I could have missed it. It's all happening pretty quickly, but I'm pretty sure that was a left to the body before the uppercut. He just couldn't. He was a little bit frozen in that space.
3 rounds to go here in this 119-pound catchweight bout between bantamweights.
Boy, there have been some body snatching in Vegas recently, huh?
No doubt about it.
Davis and Garcia, and now this. I'm about it.
This is round 6.
Round 6 begins back where we've been, in the middle of the ring. 32-year-old Michel Banquez pushing the pace there, but Angeletti's been able to physically ward him off. Not afraid of his power.
Good left hook to upstairs lands for Angeletti.
Now, if you're playing devil's advocate to the performance of Angeletti so far, and I say, well, where's the jab, Luke? What's the answer to that?
Sorry, say that again?
The jab. Angeletti hasn't relied on it much, hasn't needed it much.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The left landed again to the body. The jab is going to be fine if you're really working at range, but I feel like he just can't. He feels like he can't get Banquez off of him, and the body shots are working. I think what he's found is that obviously a guy that moves this much, and I would say Banquez is pretty clever with it as well. It's kind of hard to find. It's a little bit extra work. He's going to kind of overrun your defense a little bit there anyway with sheer force of will, so maybe meet him just right there. And then some of that body work, again, has been tremendous.
Well, high volume from Banquez throughout, but it hasn't seemed like he's landed anything too firm that has forced Angeletti to adjust to, take a step back.
It doesn't feel like a dangerous style, but it feels like a frustrating style to deal with. It's just everything he does is harassing, right?
Good right hand, though, from Banquez, excuse me. Big bit telegraphed, but he was able to slip it through.
He ate a left hook there for basically a naked uppercut, and that is risky. I mean, you could see, look at Angeletti's eyes. So when he's sitting a bit in that shelled position, you could see him just like literally looking over and waiting for just a good time right here. Just kind of pushing off and then just rolling. There it is.
Coming up on 1 minute to go here in round 6. Continued high pace. A lot of action between these two. There's a clean right cross from Michael Angeletti.
He's trying to find the left hook every time Banquez lowers his level and then returns up. Because a lot of times he's returning to the same position, and you can see Angeletti's trying to find it. Hasn't quite got one super clean, but he's got a bunch through.
Good right hand from Banquez. Angeletti seemed to slip after missing that left hook, but the action continues close. Oof. Both fighters have had at least one foot on the center logo in this ring for pretty much the entire fight.
Remarkable. Look at that. The referee didn't have to intervene. They just kind of broke off the clinch by themselves. Much better round for Banquez relative to the last one.
This ref may get another fight tonight out of those gloves. 6 rounds complete, bantamweights. Michael Angeletti looked like he hurt Michel Banquez. 1 round to go, continued to layer it on in round 6. But Banquez, you got to give him one piece of credit up to this point, not only pushing a tough pace, but he's been hurt. He's never been down, has never needed to clinch, and he continues to push a very aggressive pace, trying to wear out the younger fighter. But of the many superlatives we could talk about from Angeletti up to this point, I mean, just not fazed at all by any part of this.
And then resorting to basically a Philly shell to deal with it in close quarters. Everything is right in front of you. That is tough to master. Again, he talked about his adaptability. We'll see if he keeps doing it as the fight wears on. I still think some of his best work is at range, but I get why he wants to fight here and why he is electing to fight here.
Well, his best work as a pro probably did come 6 months ago, as we mentioned. Jeremy Adorno. It happened in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Adorno's corner stopped the fight after round 5. But Angeletti ultimately told us about that fight was very easy. Skills pay the bills. Both fighters trying to ward off their opponent with their forearm, but you're seeing a lot of clean punching coming off of that. As we mentioned, referee intervention not necessary for the majority of this one. Would like to see Angeletti create a little bit of separation.
Yeah, and also it looks to me like Banquez has physically slowed just a touch. Nice left hook. That one wobbled Banquez just a little bit there.
Angeletti trained by the duo of Jeffrey Chiletis and Rudy Silva in Spring, Texas, just north of Houston. You can't mention Houston boxing, Luke, without mentioning our own El Diamante, Raul Marquez.
Yeah.
Will be on the Spanish call of tonight's broadcast, tonight's triple header. But old Raul, not just a great fighter and broadcaster, how about a trainer, too? His young son, Giovanni, an unbeaten 140-pound pro.
And if he makes a correct boxing pick, especially over you, he'll never stop talking about it.
Who can forget?
Oh, nice uppercut from Angeletti and a good right hand to follow.
Who could forget when Raul Marquez picked Benavidez to defeat Plant and then wouldn't stop letting us know about that. But round 7, we continue to roll on. They're always having fun with our great colleague Raul Marquez. But Michael Angeletti, as you mentioned, some hard shots early in this round. And here comes Banquez, just will not take a step back. A lot of what Banquez does is smothering his own offense just for the sake of getting off first and trying to lure you in.
Yeah, even some of these punches, they're not really designed to do much, but except to just change and confuse what Angeletti is expecting to be there. There's a lot of it that is decoy or camouflage, or it's not by itself meant to do a whole lot.
Final 30 seconds in round 7. The action has been largely even in terms of pace and volume. In terms of clean punching, Michael Angeletti certainly has the edge. Good finish here, though, for Michel Banquez.
Banquez, by the way, we haven't really talked about it. There's been times where he has definitely switched stances in this fight, especially in close, changing some angles at times about what he wanted to show.
1 round to go. Bantamweights here inside the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas with you on the call. Back in our Jersey City studio. Here's a look.
Clean right to the body, then left hook. That was beautiful.
Michael Angeletti in the blue. This is looking back on round 7.
You can see, though, old Banquez, he's got some tricks, does he not? Like, I can see why he is a frustrating, difficult guy to get through it, particularly for Angeletti, this being his 8th pro fight. It's a tough contest.
Banquez turned pro in his native Venezuela back in 2015. 23-fight veteran up to this point. Took all of 2020 off amid the pandemic and 2021, but Banquez returned the following year to score a stoppage victory, but a 2-fight losing skid for the 32-year-old veteran here. And as we enter the final round, you'd have to believe Banquez is going to need something dramatic here to stop the unbeaten start of Michael Angeletti.
Yeah, definitely a commendable effort from Banquez, just not a winning one from what we can tell. Oh, look at that. Less than 20 seconds in, he's already right on top of Angeletti. It's a hard guy. Unless your jab is really causing problems and stinging, it's going to be hard to keep Banquez off, I can see. Oh, there it is.
A left hand after 2 rights connected, and down goes Michel Banquez in the final round.
That left hook has been landing all night long.
See if Angeletti can finish his work. Lead left hand connects. Banquez might be hurt, but he's back in his face. Clean punching from Angeletti off the break.
Angeletti landing. There's another left hook. That left hook has been absolutely dynamite for Angeletti this whole fight.
Big right hand hurts Banquez. Let's see if the referee jumps in.
I did his knee touch. It looked like it might have.
Banquez in big trouble along the ropes. Angeletti with the right hand, and that'll do it. Final round stoppage as Michael Angeletti improves to 8-0 with 7 knockouts.
I got to say, that was a great test for Michael Angeletti. He was looking for a tough opponent. He was looking to be pushed. He got what he was looking for, and I think in the end showed the skill level that he has, which is quite significant. Great, hard-earned, skillful performance by Michael Angeletti.
Angeletti dug in, was willing to fight Banquez in close range throughout, showed us a lot of good upper trunk movement, used the Philly shell at times, the shoulder to stay behind the punches from Banquez, but once he was able to hurt Michel Banquez in the second half of this fight, you got to tip your hat to Angeletti's finishing instincts to try to get him out of there. 2 knockdowns in the final round, 1 knockdown that set up the stoppage there in this 8th and final round. A 26-year-old prospect to watch here in the bantamweight division, and that had to feel good for the amount of work put in this very high-paced fight.
No doubt about it. This was not, I mean, sometimes in the prelims fights, we can get guys who are coming in late, who had short camps or whatever, and the fights just don't necessarily always tell you that, oh, well, because one guy won, it was this really, important proving ground. Of course, it is the case many times. What I'm trying to say here, though, is this was a case where Michael Angeletti had a skillful, talented, experienced, very frustrating style of opponent, and he nevertheless took his time, BC, to dissect him, even accommodating that style at times by playing into it, and nevertheless getting the better of it in the end.
There's that lead right hand that you mentioned. Did his knee touch? It came close. It certainly hurt Banquez, but the referee looked like he was ready to stop this at the next clean shot, and that's what we got.
I appreciate Banquez moving right up until the end, but it was starting to go real bad for him. And everyone's going to say, well, it's the 8th round. You got to let it go. The referee is not obligated to check with the clock to see how much time is left. He or she is merely making a judgment call about what they see in real time. I understand the call.
I mean, we still hear debates today about the ending of Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. and Meldrick Taylor, but Richard Steele saw what he saw there with seconds to go in the final round. 2 fights complete here on Showtime Boxing Countdown. Brian Campbell, Luke Thomas, if you're just joining us. 1 fight to go in our preliminary coverage, but we are building to the top of the pops here. 9 p.m. Eastern, the Showtime Boxing triple header. And this 140-pound division business opening up here. Alberto Puello, your WBA champion, failed the drug test. The title there went vacant, although Puello will stay champion in recess. And to close on that, Puello's trainer, Bob Santos, was on the In This Corner podcast on May 6th and said he expects potentially about a 3 to 6 month suspension for Puello, who, just to repeat, tested positive for a banned substance in clomiphene, but seems to have an alibi. Him and his wife were trying to have children through treatments which contain that drug. And Bob Santos believes Puello could be right back in here, potentially against the winner of tonight's Rolly Romero-Ismael Barroso fight for that vacant WBA 140-pound title. Luke, we have set up here a lot about the return of Rolly Romero. One of the biggest punchers in this game, has a somewhat raw boxing style, of course. I mean, we got to remember how Rolly Romero came to be. He showed up at the Mayweather gym there in Las Vegas, and we know the crazy sparring sessions they have. What do they call it? The doghouse? Mm-hmm. There's sort of about an unlimited amount of rounds and very limited rules in there. It was Rolly's performance in those fights that got Floyd Mayweather's attention to get him signed to Mayweather Promotions. But I think you gave him good credit earlier, and we saw that in the fight against Gervonta Tank Davis, in which Romero lost on pay-per-view last year. But he was a threat with that power. Gervonta really had to be careful and take his time. How much more evolved are you expecting to see Romero tonight, considering this? He'll snap nearly a 12-month layoff tonight, the longest of his career. The second longest of his career was ahead of that Gervonta fight, both times more than 300 days off. That is a lot of time off to work on your craft. As much as we can predict tonight's Romero-Barroso fight is a slugfest that probably doesn't go the distance, are we going to see more adaptation for Romero of the boxing game to set up the power punches?
I hope so, because the truth is you won't get him to truly evolve unless he believes it's a reasonable way to win. He has to actually believe it's a path to victory. And a lot of these guys, especially the ones with big power, they kind of believe if I just sneak through enough punches, that really is all I have to do, or I'll eventually it'll go my way. And of course, he ran into Tank Davis, who, by the way, gave Romero credit for his significant punching power, but nevertheless, it just wasn't enough. So he says he's more mature. He says he's learned a lesson. He says, in fact, what he took from the Tank Davis fight was, okay, he lost, but he accepted the mistake that he made that got him there and being overzealous, and then all the other things that went right promotionally. He sort of looked at it as an overall maybe winning effort, or overall very positive effort. I honestly think you will see, at least to start, a Romero who takes his time. But BC, the thing that's interesting is a guy like Barroso, with the power that he has, could he land on Romero and then just drag those old bad habits out of him? And again, you can say what you want about Barroso's age. The dude can thump. And if you make errors against a guy like that, honestly, age or whatever, power's the last thing to go. It may not matter. So I think this is a great opportunity for Romero to lean on development. But if he's not careful, I think he can get pulled into something that may not be to his benefit.
Well, here's an interesting CompuBox stat to set you up for tonight's main event. Romero and Barroso combined to throw 80% of their punches as power punches.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to see a lot of that tonight, as Rolly Romero averages 9.9 punches attempted per round. 8 of those in itself are power shots, anything but a jab. Let's head back to the ring now in Las Vegas, the Cosmopolitan, for our third and final preliminary bout on this Showtime Boxing Countdown special to kick things off here. To set the stage, a little appetizer ahead of tonight's triple header. And Luke, we're going to go to the super lightweight division, a 10-round bout. Estuary Suero.
That's a tough one to say.
Against Starling Castillo, both fighters of the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, an all-Dominican affair here. These guys were having some words for each other at the face-off at the weigh-in. This should be a fun one.
Castillo, the southpaw, in white trunks with the blue gloves. Suero, unbeaten, 12-0 with 9 KOs in the red trunks. Just 23 years old is Suero. Both fighters from Santo Domingo in the Dominican. Suero now fighting out of Las Vegas. And Castillo still in his native country. But we've seen Castillo before, Luke. Suffered his first pro defeat in early 2022 on Showbox, the new generation. And even though he bounced back with the win, he did have a majority draw after that. So Starling Castillo is looking to bounce back in a big way this evening.
Yeah, these two already a little bit getting after it, taking some risks. So southpaw versus orthodox. Pay attention to lead foot positioning. Pay attention, unfortunately, to potential clash of heads. Lots of things that happen when you have what's called an open stance fight.
Suero, the aggressor, showing some good confident body language as he walks Castillo down with punches. Ooh, good counter right hand from Castillo, but the left hand of Suero seemed to wobble him briefly. That was a big punch to get the attention of Castillo. Let's see how he responds. This is the U.S. debut for Estuary Suero. Did I get that?
That first name is tough to say. Estuary Suero is for sure his last name. Just a couple of gringos, just botching everyone's names. We're trying.
Suero goes by the nickname El Puma.
Ooh, right hand over the top there for Suero.
Something to watch here. Castillo was stopped in his only defeat. And Suero believes he's got chin issues. He doesn't believe he'll be able to handle his power throughout the full 10 rounds here. Excuse me, I take that back. Castillo was dropped in his only pro defeat. That came in January of 2022 on Showbox. He was down twice in the opening round. Went on to lose an 8-round decision to unbeaten Otar Aranosian. But Castillo misses wildly there with the right hand.
I'm loving the double left hooks from Suero. Also, Castillo is throwing the left very far away, and it nearly has been countered a couple of times already from Suero. The old Frank Martin special, the pull-two counter. Pay attention if he still is trying to box from way outside.
Good right-hand counter from Suero. Good ring generalship early on.
Yeah, better movement, too. He seems much more balanced. It wasn't quite the pull-two counter, but
140-pound division in the opening round in the books of this 10-round affair. Our featured presentation here on Showtime Boxing Countdown. But just 23 years old is Suero, and good clean punching early on.
Oh, look at that left hook. His head was in the same place, Castillo, so when he came back up for the left hook, he just threw it. It was right there. Look, he doesn't move it, boom, at all.
Well, Castillo took on unbeaten Kenny De Leon, a Dominican fighter, back in October of last year. They fought to a 10-round split draw, and Suero told us he is very good friends with De Leon and picked up a little bit of intel on how to beat Castillo ahead of this one.
Again, I'm loving the double left hooks, which I think is also partly BC setting up that lead outside foot positioning, which is going to be key for him as the fight moves along.
Good action, though, in this opening round as both fighters getting after it.
You know, I do love it when we have, nation versus nation battles. That's what boxing is really built on. I don't know, though. I also like the all Mexico affairs, all Puerto Rican affairs, or in this particular case, all Dominican affairs. There's a little bit of, these guys, you can tell, man, there are absolute national bragging rights here between these two in terms of, what's on the line.
We did ask Suero about this. He said he has no problem fighting a countryman. Castillo admitted it's a little bit weird, but he says, I'm a soldier who will go into battle against anybody.
Okay, pretty clear speed advantage, it seems to me, for Suero. Much faster hands and faster feet.
Good range control, clean punching from the outside for Suero.
Look at him taking the lead outside foot position on those the left hooks to the body. He's using that for a couple of reasons, not least of which is to set himself up positionally.
Sometimes when you ask a fighter ahead of a bout, what type of weaknesses does your opponent show? Sometimes they keep the cards behind the vest here, so to speak. But Suero, he was ready to jump out quickly on Castillo. He says, first, he gets tired. Secondly, he drops his hands too much. And third, he falls down easy when he gets hit. It's a confident power puncher here in Suero. 9 KOs and 12 pro wins. Certainly seeing Castillo wary of the power of Suero as he slips in a stiff jab. Good right hand from Suero. Castillo wasn't against talking a little trash ahead of this fight, though, in the back and forth.
No, definitely not.
And I said, look, you guys have beef coming in? He said, we've crossed paths on our home island before. We haven't exchanged words.
Castillo having all kinds of balance problems when he's tried to set his angle.
He was hit clean twice in that opening round with big looping power shots. As we close in on the final 30 seconds of round two. There's a good left cross from Castillo that seemed to find the mark.
Castillo doing a little bit better job this round going to the body, and in particular off the pressure or the attacks of Suero, kind of making him pay for it. Ooh. Left hand wasn't quite accurate enough, but the idea was good for Castillo there.
Final seconds here of round two.
Better round for Castillo, by far. Better round.
Castillo, a 6-year pro. This is the 20th pro contest of his career. And let's look back on round two as that looping left hand, a counter shot from Castillo, found the mark.
And he was stepping on the lead foot, so he didn't quite have the perfect angle for that one, but it was just enough where he was able to angle it over and get something out of it. Nice work.
With a loss and a draw in his last 3 bouts, this is a big opportunity tonight for Castillo to get the train back on the tracks. One thing to remember before that lone defeat of his pro career, which happened on Showbox The New Generation in 2022, he was fresh off a 10-round unanimous decision over former world title challenger Juan Carlos Burgos. So Castillo is certainly a tough out, a southpaw. He's long, he can fight. But Suero's been coming out here early, Luke, to really try to test that chin.
Yeah, I think he needs to, again, it looked to me like he had a speed advantage. I would like to see him make better use of that this round. We shall see. Again, I want you, these guys are definitely looking for it. People make a lot about you have to get your foot to the outside. Well, it depends on what you're trying to throw. If you're actually trying to jab, that's not necessarily true. Even hooking, not necessarily true. But certainly for straights, and certainly, again, for hooks, I would also argue it would depend. It would just be better in general to have that kind of positioning. There's all kinds of exceptions to the rules. But they do seem to really covet it based on what they're throwing. So keep a close eye on it.
Suero snapping a 6-month layoff this evening as he was fresh off a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Jose Galvez in December. Suero's also gone the 10-round distance in each of his last 2 fights entering this one.
So it looks to me like Castillo has now figured out much of the attack of Suero. He is good at anticipating and covering and knowing what's there. Still having a hard time landing cleanly and consistently, but you can see he has a better understanding of what Suero is trying to do.
Referee Celestino Ruiz going with the blue latex gloves this time.
Listen, as long as they're not cochino and no gloves, 2 thumbs up from this guy.
Castillo did well to get out of the corner there and force this clinch. A much slower pace here in round 3 than the very quick start as both look to land big in the early going of round 1.
And you can see Castillo tried to greet him with that left. It came up a little high, didn't quite land. But again, he understands now what Suero's trying to do, and he's just trying to find a home to make him pay for it. Look at him. You can see exactly he knows. You see that left hand and then the right to the body? He's just trying to find his moment.
Suero nearly landed that right counter clean. Looked like Castillo stumbled there as he got hit in the chest. Both fighters landing big shots. Is Suero hurt, or is that a little bit of a dance?
No, that looked to me like that left over the top got Suero's attention. And
Suero
then they're just doing some head tosses.
Rightfully so. Referee Celestino Ruiz calling that a push, a slip. But Castillo perked up here after landing that big shot. I wasn't sure if Suero was wobbled, if he was doing a little bit of a taunting dance. Turns out one of those left hands seemed to slip through.
Some of Castillo's left hands, they look like they almost land on the palm rather than turned over. So sometimes it's hard to tell like how much steam is really on that, but he does appear to be finding the mark. And now look who's holding.
Interesting developments. Castillo trying to slip in a clean punch off the break. Ruiz warned him.
I got to say, though, Castillo way more off balance when he throws. Again, in part because he's trying to throw from really far away.
He feels he may have his opponent hurt, so he's willing to open up here as the round comes to a close. A wild round and an interesting development here as Starling Castillo may have worked himself back into the fight.
Look how confident he is. He was putting his gloves together when he went back, and for Suero, he seemed a little bit unsure of what had kind of just happened there.
Let's look back. Good defense from Castillo.
Yeah, that got his attention.
It was the looping left cross that briefly wobbled Suero. These are some wild shots from Castillo, knowing that he had a hurt opponent.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason Suero fell was, yes, he got thrown to the canvas. I don't think his balance was there. It was easy to do that, is what I'm pointing out, given how hurt he was.
Big shot from Starling Castillo. Let's see if he can take advantage of this turn. He seems to be confident heading back into the corner, as we mentioned. A fun little battle here through 4 rounds.
Momentum has shifted. Suero came out like a bat out of hell in that first round. Castillo weathered it, and I think is now beginning to take over here slowly but surely.
A lead left cross off the start from Castillo gets Suero's attention. Scheduled for 10 rounds, 140-pound division.
That's a good left hook there from Suero.
No shortage of star power or big names. Let's see if the winner in this one can join that group. Suero working behind the jab. He's got to get back to the basics here to get his legs under him. But you do have to be wary of those unconventional shots from Castillo.
Look at the lead hand of Castillo, so low. Now Suero's kind of a little bit trying it too. Would like to see more faking and feinting from these guys. They're just jousting, right? They're just kind of taking turns going and picking like just the right spot, but there's not a lot of setup behind it. They're just going.
They briefly clashed heads there as they came together.
I would like to see them do a little bit more work before throwing to confuse and open up their opponents by virtue of that.
Castillo appears to be settled into being the counter striker after landing the big looping shots last round. Definitely seen a change in his body language, more confident coming out here.
There's a little bit.
Suero said he models his fighting style after Puerto Rican legend Felix Tino Trinidad.
Great style to emulate, just tough to do.
Tough to do indeed.
Oof. That left hand from Castillo, it didn't land clean, but he is getting close. Again, Castillo just lead hand completely down by his thigh.
Right cross to the body from Suero. See Castillo loading up on that left hand, trying to find an opening for that one big shot.
By the way, I think Justin Valoria is then in the he's sitting there watching the fights in the arena, or somebody with his shirt is anyway.
The 18-year-old prospect, Justin Valoria, improving to 2-0 to kick off tonight's preliminary triple header.
Pull 2 counter nearly got there for Castillo. They're just a little bit too far apart to really score big.
Final 10 seconds of round 4. It's been a fun little scrap in our featured bout in our preliminary triple header. 10 rounds is scheduled for in the 140-pound division. Estuary.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I would say it this way. Este means this in Spanish, so you can just break it up. Esteuri.
Esteuri.
Uri.
Who not only gave credit to Puerto Rican legend Tito Trinidad. Luke, it was his own Dominican countryman, though, lightweight contender Michel Rivera, who once Suero saw him fight as a professional, he said, I can do that. I should be doing that. And here we are at 23 years old. He's an unbeaten prospect in a featured bout. But a tough test and another countryman across from him here in Starling Castillo. He hurt Suero in round 3. They largely boxed on even terms the following round. Here we go, round 5. Suero in the red trunks.
It looks to me like Castillo made some adjustments earlier in the fight, and Suero still hasn't. He's still trying to kind of do some of the stuff he'd been doing before, which is somewhat effective, but not nearly as effective as it was early on. And I'm curious to see if he's got a different gear he can go to.
Castillo still looks a little bit gun-shy from the standpoint of exchanging two-way fire, but he's looking
good
to land.
left hand.
That left hand, it landed partially. That's the type of shot he probably believes could end this fight.
I think what we have here is Castillo believes he's got Suero's number, at least in terms of how he attacks and what he can do about it.
Timing him with the overhand left.
Timing him, and then what his attacks look like, what to expect. But the other part is that I think he does still fear the hand speed of Suero, and as a consequence is a little bit reluctant to get too close. Good work from Suero. Nice combination, starting to the body and then going upstairs to the head. That's great work. You notice, BC, they're getting hit, each one's with the same kinds of punches over and over again.
Suero starting to create a little bit of distance after he lands, knowing that left cross from Castillo is coming. There it was. It landed once again from Castillo. Wasn't a ton on it, though. Now, referee Celestino Ruiz letting Suero know about. What did he warn him there for, Luke?
I think being irresponsible with his head position.
Final minute approaches here in round 5.
Better round for Uri Suero.
Tense battle here in the super lightweight division.
Both guys just trying to counter each one off of their positioning. See, this is to me, BC, the difference between creating openings and then taking advantage of them. And of course, nothing wrong with taking advantage of an opening. If it's there, do it. But there's a different level when you can create the opening, then take advantage of it. These guys are kind of at the mercy of letting the other guy throw and then having to find an opportunity thereafter.
Quick jab from Suero gets inside. Castillo's chin has held up here despite Suero's warnings.
Again, I would love to see some more faking and feinting from these guys.
A tense joust between super lightweights. 5 rounds complete. And this all Dominican matchup.
You ever been to the DR?
You know, I may have had a cruise stop there at some point, but I have no.
Counts, I guess.
You know, I haven't explored the island
culture
like
of the
I'd
island.
like to. Yes. I mean, you know, shout out to Punta Cana. I'd vacation there anytime, Luke. Right?
Who wouldn't?
Indeed. Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas is the site for tonight's triple header. As you're looking at the aerial view of the ring here, 5 rounds in, Suero versus Castillo, in the final bout of our Showtime boxing countdown triple header. And all things Rolly Romero, Ismael Barroso to come on the marquee of tonight's triple header. Vacant 140-pound title in the WBA on the line.
This is round 6.
As we start off round 6. Castillo, Luke, beginning in round 3 when he hurt Suero, is certainly a threat from the standpoint of landing one big punch, but I don't think he's active enough to win these rounds.
No, and if you'll notice, it's constantly Suero center of ring, and it's Castillo circling. And again, that's not necessarily the end of the world, although some commissions do judge based on who is moving forward. But what I mean to say is, I think the fight has kind of settled into a rhythm where Castillo feels like I can just be on the outside and accept the pressure and I'll get the better of it. And sometimes he is, but not all the time. And it can be a bit of a dangerous game to play in terms of the judges when a fight is close if you're constantly on the outside circling.
No question about it, but a looping lead left hand from Castillo did find the mark.
You never feel like, I mean, both these guys are still in this contest. Like, no one's really taken the other one to a different place yet.
No, Castillo has certainly added the fear of what he can do with one big shot. Now Ruiz warning Suero once again.
About the forearm here.
And now we see Castillo trying to walk Suero down for the first time in a while. Does feel like, as you can see, the timing is there for his left hand.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is better from Castillo because it looks to me like Suero doesn't really like, although he surrendered positioning against the ropes, but when he was pushing it, like Suero was much more naturally defensive in that orientation.
Castillo a little bit wild, but he is going after it. Good combination finishing with the right hand.
And that right hook is finding the mark. And there's the left hand. Castillo putting pressure is making a big difference in this round.
For all the words Suero said confidently ahead of this fight, Castillo believes there may be an opening. He hurt Suero in round 3. It's been largely a tense affair since then, but not with too much action. Suero answering with a right cross. This is the most offensive, though, we have seen Starling Castillo in this fight. The 3-punch combination finds the mark.
Yeah, I like that work from Castillo, but again, when he's putting pressure and he's got Suero backing up, he just has a different opponent in front of him.
We talked to Castillo about the stakes in this fight. Given a recent loss and a draw, he said everything is on the line. We're seeing him willing to risk his stance here to try to create something offensively here in round 6. Lean punches from Suero to
Castillo just walking into range.
He's been wild this round in his attacks. But able to slip in single shots here and there, and as we saw him go on the offensive, saw some good clean combination punching. Probably the best round without question for Starling Castillo to see if he can build upon this momentum.
Oh, you could see Suero step back for the pull-to counter, but he misjudged it, and he actually just didn't get far enough away. And you could see, look at outside foot positioning doesn't matter because now he's at the wrong distance, Castillo is, and he pays for it. Both guys sort of misjudging the reach of the other one and what they're capable of in those positions and consequently paying for it.
6 rounds in the book. 10-round featured presentation here on Showtime Boxing Countdown. Super lightweight division. Luke, is the momentum firmly in Castillo's hands in your eyes at this point, or is Suero doing his best to hang in there?
Yes, Castillo to this point has done, I think, better overall. He's landed better punches overall, but it doesn't seem like by any stretch he's got this locked up. I'm curious to see if he can get back to a more pressure.
Talking about Suero, who has done the better work overall, but Castillo coming on the last couple rounds.
With the pressure, yes. Although Castillo's had some moments too where it's like, dude, Suero's doing more work, but Castillo will then land a shot that has a demonstrative effect, where it pops the head back, and like you wonder with the judges what they're going to say about that.
Good action on the inside to start off here in round 7. Castillo's appeared to hurt Suero in round 3, and he's fresh off what has to be his best round from the standpoint of putting volume together with those power punches. 1 round to go. Good right to the body from Suero to create distance.
A little bit of faking there from Suero. Not bad. Got a good dominant angle and then put some combination together. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. That's better.
Well, body shots there on the exit from Castillo. Castillo willing to operate from much closer distance this round.
Man, just turning all the way like that. I get that you're not supposed to hit someone in the back of the head, but when they just move into a position like that, it's so unusual in boxing. It can happen.
I have to believe this is smart body work from Suero to try to slowly slow down the ambitions of Castillo after a good stretch there in the 6th round.
Also, just if you can, it looks like sometimes the body work gets Castillo to shell up a little bit. Getting him to shell up is definitely a great thing, especially for a guy who wants to use hooks as a way to close range thereafter.
1 minute to go in round 7. Still a tense affair. Good lead jab from Castillo and a left hand to the body. Fight still feeling very much up for grabs. A lot of the confidence Suero had early on walking forward. You can see some of that that pause in his attack this time around after feeling the looping power of Castillo.
They're just timing each other's front foot movement, basically. They're waiting to see and just sort of, I mean, of course, it's a little more than that, distance and everything else, but like in terms of when to go, you'll see it's just right after that they're just timing that because there's not enough fakes and feints in front of it. It's when you can make that unpredictable, like it feels like they're going to step and then they don't, or then they don't and then you didn't anticipate it. You've got to change that up. You got to change the rhythm, change the angle, change the look, and faking and feinting will go a long way towards making that possible.
Better work from Suero in the final 10 seconds, although a couple of those shots were questionably close to the back of the head, as you saw Castillo complain to referee Celestino Ruiz. But we are getting closer here to the finish. 10 rounds in the super lightweight division, 7 now in the book. A very seemingly close fight. In terms of momentum shifts and changes, Castillo's certainly coming on, but I like that round for Suero, getting back to basics, going to the body more often, and really just trying to, I don't know, minimize the danger coming back in terms of those looping shots. And again, it's not the same. It's not the same crispness and confidence that Suero did have in the opening.
Also, this isn't 100% true, but in general, dictating ring position, dictating what kind of pace the fight's going to be fought at, Castillo is in large part accommodating him.
Ron Campbell and Luke Thomas with you here in Jersey City. The action inside the ring is the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. 3 rounds to go. This 140-pound matchup. I haven't seen much tension between them in terms of trash talking in the fight, although Castillo said if Suero wants to talk, I will be glad to shut his mouth. Here's where Castillo does have to be careful, though, the overall volume and getting those judges' attention in rounds in which you may not have landed anything big. Suero doing a good job of mixing in jabs and body shots.
Neither guy doing a lot of rolling, though, after throwing and the anticipation of a response. They kind of throw and then do what they call taking pictures, where they're just kind of looking a little bit, or then just trying to then throw something else after it rather than anticipating a defensive response.
Take a picture, it'll last longer, Luke, is usually the refrain I've heard in my life, you know? Better work here from Suero, slipping in shots. Castillo's still trying to line up those big power shots. The head movement of Suero has been a little bit too much. I mean, is Castillo throwing enough for your liking from the standpoint of the success he did have with his left hand?
Not recently, no. I mean, again, he's catching through a little bit there. He popped Suero's head back with a jab, and then they clinched. So it's not like there's nothing happening. There definitely is. Again, some of it quite demonstrative, but there's not enough of a consistent attack, right? He's not building towards anything, it doesn't seem like.
Final 60 seconds of round 8 upon us. Referee Ruiz warning them again for punches to the back of the head in the clinch. Good combination and step aside there from Suero.
Better ring generalship there from Suero, reclaiming center.
Clean left hand from Castillo. Not much else behind it.
I will say this, Suero giving Castillo something to think about after he throws his left, which I think has reduced his willingness to engage as much with it as a consequence.
Wonder if Castillo is going to kick himself afterwards for not throwing enough punches in key moments. He was the aggressor in round 6, but that was about it. Snapping the head back with a stiff jab to Suero.
That was great. He missed it with the jab, touched him to the right with the body, then came back over the top with the left. Matter of fact, that's the shot Rolly Romero got knocked out for, trying to do that to Tank Davis. Actually, one of Tank Davis's weakness. I did an entire breakdown on Tank Davis. You can catch it on the Morning Combat YouTube channel. That's that combination specifically. That although Tank obviously overcame in the end, but the tape had showed that was something that it was giving him problems. Same exact combination you just saw there.
Estuary?
It's a tough one. It's a tough
You know,
one.
I did write down the phonetics here. Are you ready for this?
The translator that we had.
Esterui.
Yeah, the translator that we had is Argentinian and pronounced it Esteudi.
Shout out to Martin Batyr.
And obviously he knows better than we do, but it's tough to say.
The last gaucho, Martin Batyr, the communications specialist from PBC and Showtime, always on the scene. 2 rounds to go there in this all-Dominican 140-pound showdown. The Cosmo of Las Vegas.
This is round
A good round
9.
last time out for Suero. We know of the danger Castillo brings with that left hand. Good counter right hand from Suero. Castillo reached in. If there's a big flaw in Castillo,
The reaching, right?
it's the telegraph. It's the lack of technique at times when he's reaching in for big power shots.
Good uppercut and then a left hook before that. Dude, I gotta tell you, the hooking game. Now they're just trading openly.
Big flurry to the body from Castillo. Both fighters going for it here. Round 9.
The boxing equivalent of Russian roulette. We both have our hands down. Let's just throw.
We want more volume. Castillo providing it, but stiff jabs from Suero. Two-way exchanging.
Well, this fight opened up in a hurry in round 9.
Yet another warning from Celestino Ruiz to Suero. No points taken away, though. Might be the 4th time he's been stopped and reprimanded. Now they devolve a bit into heavy clinching, but interesting trading this round. Suero did snap the head back of Castillo with an uppercut recently, but ate that counter left hand over the top.
Suero trying a couple of pivots out, but not really working. Actually, Castillo timing it and catching him at the end of it.
Both fighters with plenty of experience going the 10-round distance. It shouldn't be an issue here. We close in on the final minute of round 9. This is the type of threat Castillo needs to bring. Try to get off first, walk Suero down.
The pressure.
But the cleaner punches are coming from Suero.
He's so off balance, Castillo.
What we were alluding to before, it can be a little bit too rushed and lose that technique and throw wild shots. It's really the footwork that puts him out of position to really sit down and land a heavy shot.
Good job there by Suero using his jab, sort of a lead hand occupier, to slow down the encroachment there from Castillo for a moment.
Action picking up a bit as we reach the 30-second mark in round 9. Good pressure from Castillo, but
Just covering the head there.
timely tie-up from Suero.
Boy, a lot of wrestling in this contest, huh?
Castillo not happy there as he barks back at referee Ruiz.
Good left hand. I'm not sure how cleanly it landed, BC, but it was there.
He worked off the jab, did Castillo, for that 1-2. Clean right hand from Suero in the closing seconds.
Pardon me.
And finally, Ruiz's will step in here as we close round 9, docking a point from Estuary Suero. I think I nailed it that time.
That name is kicking your rear end.
He asked, what foul is he given taking the point away? It's hard to guess considering he's been warned multiple times for multiple infractions. Sometimes leading with the left forearm, sometimes hitting to the back of the head. But Luke Thomas, as we approach the final round here in this 140-pound, 10-round bout, the offense increased and picked up last round. How important, though, will that point deduction be if this goes the distance?
Incredibly important. You could see they get a little bit... they get a little bit loose like that, and there's not a lot of discipline to the referee's instructions. I think that's the part. It's not like these are egregious fouls, but they're just sort of continuously lax behavior on his part.
It's the accumulation of multiple warnings across the board.
So I will say this, the scoring probably could be tight and a little bit weird. The rounds are a little bit weird.
It has to be. We've had at least 2 rounds where Castillo seemed to hurt and even wobble Suero. We've also seen twice as many rounds where Castillo not throwing enough. He certainly came out aggressive in round 6. He kept up that same pace and aggression last round. But the 10th and final round is upon us. Well, key positioning in the larger picture at 140 pounds. 23-year-old Estuary Suero putting the unbeaten record on the line here against a dangerous veteran in Starling Castillo. When Suero can pick apart from distance, that's his most effective role in this fight.
No doubt about it. You can see he is punching a little bit belt line-ish. Good left hand strafes through for Castillo.
Look, if you're Castillo here, you don't know where the scorecards are at. You've had a lack of output at times. You've got to go for it. You've got to score a knockdown. You've got to give yourself the best chance to make a monster dent on the scorecard and take advantage, potentially, of that point deduction in round 9. Ruiz still having problems breaking these 2 up. You never know how the judges might see it. Something we've seen in both combat sports many times. Good clean punching from both. Castillo letting it go. We wanted a bit of urgency. He's providing it.
Uh-oh.
Another forearm lead.
Castillo doing a fair bit of complaining. You were saying the punching was clean. Some of it was, but it looked to me like a lot of it was very belt line-ish, man.
Ruiz might be calling for the ringside doctor as Castillo continues to complain about the forearms, the pushing. The drama picking up here in the final round.
Oh, something's wrong with his shoulder and or clavicle or neck.
78 seconds remaining. Can Castillo gut it out? Potential shoulder injury. I thought Ruiz was going to take away another point here as he talks to Suero, and he will, Luke.
Wow, that is monumental.
Back-to-back point deductions against Estuary Suero. Leading with that forearm seems to be the most egregious one that Ruiz has had issues with. And Castillo has complained. Let's see if Suero has the urgency now.
Honestly, he might have to get a knockout with that. It's entirely possible.
What a wild turn of events to this fight, which has featured pockets of two-way action and the constant threat of Castillo's looping left hands. Suero, though, 2 points deducted so far, leading with that shoulder and wrestling Castillo. You wonder if he's risking it. Big punches from Castillo.
Oh!
Is Suero hurt against the ropes?
Man, you wonder where this was all fight from Castillo. When he is pressing, he has so much success.
Both fighters landing, but it's Castillo that is making the fight happen.
Well, I got to tell you, if he wins this one, this round, Castillo, with the 2 point deductions, he's got to be favored to win the whole thing.
A math equation likely ahead for the three judges sitting ringside. Final 15 seconds here. Two late point deductions against Suero. Castillo coming alive in the second half. Ten rounds complete. How do you have it is the question for the three judges. 2-point deductions against Suero, who appeared to have done the better work throughout most of this fight. But who landed the more effective, bigger power shots, Luke Thomas? That was Starling Castillo.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And especially, the 2-point deduction. Losing 1 point can be an enormously influential in who wins and loses. Losing 2 is a near-death sentence, unless you're out there absolutely dominating, which, again, Suero had a lot of success, no doubt about it, but I don't know if he had enough to overcome 2-point deductions. That is a brutal, brutal hill to climb.
But to be fair, Suero warned many times by referee Celestino Ruiz for a number of infractions. It appeared to be, though, the leading forearm off into the neck, throat of Castillo was the one that got him in trouble twice. Ring announcer Miguel Flores waiting on the scores that are being collected from the ringside judges. This all-Dominican showdown at 140 pounds. Suero appeared to have at times the speed advantage. He had a technical advantage, but that looping power of Castillo was able to get him off his game multiple times.
I got to say, too, Castillo, because he had such success pressing, I wonder if he had some gas tank issues. He just couldn't go to that gear enough.
Let's go to Miguel Flores for the scoring.
After 10 rounds of boxing, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judges Eric Cheek and Max DeLuca both see it 95-92, and Judge David Sutherland sees it 94-93. All three judges in agreement for your winner by unanimous decision, Starling El Poli Castillo.
And they give it to Castillo. The 2-point deductions in his favor on the scoring, landed the bigger shots throughout, and it was enough to get the unanimous decision. 95-92 on 2 of 3 scorecards, 94-93 on the other. So, Luke, did the point deductions in the end sway this fight? Not necessarily.
Okay, but so if you give 2 more points back to Suero, he would have had 1 judge's scorecard, number 1. The other thing I would say is, okay, in the end, it didn't necessarily change the result when you have 2 95-92s. However, 1 more round goes differently.
Sure.
1 more round looks just like one judge, or literally, if one judge scores 1 round differently and there's no point deduction, it goes the other way. That's how close this contest was. So, yes, Starling Castillo had in the end, I think that he was the right guy won, right? Sort of in the end.
Well, look, it does come down to how this fight was scored. When you talk about the fact that certainly Castillo hurt him in round 3, seemed to hurt him again in round 6, came on in 2 of the final 5 rounds with very aggressive pace. But Luke, where was that pace throughout most of this fight? Could you have scored a ton of those in the direction of Suero? Possibly. Close fight even without the point deductions. But if you said, did the right guy win? Well, the guy that won did land the better shots, the bigger shots throughout. That is something that the judges look through.
I would say this. Castillo, to me, landed the more memorable offense. I appreciate what Suero was able to do at various times and how the fight kind of settled into a way that was, I think, more in keeping with how he wanted to have that bout conducted. But Castillo, and he paid for it at times too, reaching a lot, not necessarily being balanced when he threw, but when he did connect, it just seemed to have a much more demonstrable effect. Remember, he rocked Suero earlier in the contest. Sure. So it was one guy was really hurting the other guy, and I think one guy was kind of Obviously, there was issues in the clinch tying up with the forearm, which is why the point was deducted. I think he was using his head a lot as a post, which you're not supposed to do as well. So those issues were complicating. Suero showing some good things, BC. Showing some good hand speed, showing some good foot speed. Again, the hooking was important, but too much defensive liability and not enough discipline in the clinch to keep himself from the referee taking a couple points from him.
First defeat in the young career of Suero. I did like what I saw at a lot of him at certain points. Would like to see him again, but a lot of credit to Starling Castillo, who had his first defeat on Showbox in 2022, had a draw in his last outing, yet rebounded in a big way. That'll complete the triple header on the preliminary action tonight in the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. But we are oh so close to the top of the hour, 9 p.m. Eastern, and a Showtime Championship Boxing triple header. And of course, that 140-pound title bout in the main event, the vacant WBA title at stake. Rolando Romero moving up to 140 pounds to welcome 40-year-old veteran Ismael Barroso. Power, of course, the last thing to go, and both of these two are power punchers. We very much look forward for this main event tonight. You can catch it on Showtime, and hey, if you don't have Showtime, now would be a great time to do that. Go to Showtime.com right now, or how about a 7-day free trial of Showtime with Paramount Plus? Free for 1 month, $11.99 from there on out. You can go to ParamountPlus.com/Showtime bundle for more information right there. Luke Thomas, as we set the stage now finally for tonight's triple header, I really like this matchup. What is interesting, though, when you break down the numbers, Barroso more of a volume puncher, a power puncher, but his success statistically seems when he gets off with the jab first, when he looks to spam you, looks to try to overwhelm you and back you up. In some ways, that might be the perfect style for Rolly Romero to react to.
Well, it could also be the worst style for him to react to if he is deciding that the jab is frustrating, if the jab is limiting him. Let me just take out one of these big bombs and then reset the score here, right? That could also be a way that he thinks. Again, this is really going to be about the, yes, of course, the tactics of Rolly Romero, the strategy, but it's going to be about the mental disposition. Where is he? How calm is he? How much is he thinking through problems rather than just trying to use force to overwhelm a particular contest or a particular problem? How much is he going to think through it? Because again, we have seen flashes of that in that last contest where he was both putting on pressure, right? It wasn't like Rolly was on the back foot against Tank. He was on the front foot. He was pushing him backwards. So if he's getting backed up, how does he react? It's going to be important to see.
Well, we have a video to set the stage for this matchup, Romero versus Barroso. Let's throw to it right now.
I started this boxing thing at 17. I go after what I want. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it to the max of my ability.
What do you want to do next?
I want Gervonta Davis. I'm going to knock him out.
I'm the greatest salesman in boxing.
I'm going to knock this chump the fuck out. Like that.
You know what I mean? I'm naturally charismatic. You know, you can't ever teach that.
Everyone bet on me. Everyone support me. Going to get fucking rich. Does it look like I'm having a good time?
WBA lightweight champion Gervonta Tank Davis taking on Rolly Romero in a personal grudge match.
That atmosphere was wild. When I first walked out, just like gazed into the crowd. That right there was one of the happiest moments of my life.
18,970 people on hand, a record-setting crowd at Barclays Center.
Oh, he took a big left hand.
Right hand and then a left. I do think it got Davis's attention.
I'm fighting a favorite. You got to press to win a favorite because I could have sat back and boxed the entire time. You got to press to win.
Tag's waiting for Rolly to throw that right so he can counter.
There's a big left hand, and down goes Romero.
I played a chess game too aggressively.
It's over.
It's a learning lesson. It happens.
He was beating him, but a little bit of patience, a little experience, a little more maturity.
I looked and I realized where I had messed up. I accepted my defeat. I'm happy it happened. I learned from it, and I moved forward.
I think that was one of the best things that could have happened to him mentally. Now, he's a more patient Rolly, more defensive Rolly, still aggressive, but smart.
Yeah, I just feel like I've matured a bit. 27 years old now. I'm healthy. I'm at peace of mind. The last year, I done went through a lot. God flushed all the negative, toxic, bad people out of my life. The good people for me stayed. And it had been better for me. Me and my dad haven't argued at all this camp. That's a rare one, you know? Me, I'm a strong-minded personality. My dad's a very strong-minded personality. But like, no, we've been on the same page. Both happy, we're both moving toward the same goal. There's been nothing but positivity in this camp. I mean, if you're happy, you do everything 10 times better, you know? I'm completely energized. I feel like this is it.
I think this fight, we'll be able to show that he could box, he could fight, he could move, he could do all that. He's ready to be a world champion.
I've done a lot for boxing already. With my short 15-fight career, I'm gonna take over 140 pounds. I'm gonna be the biggest star in this sport. I wanna be a world champion. And I'll make sure that happens. This isn't a shit-talking fight. This is me, whoop that ass, and move on with my day. I'm gonna make sure boxing stays entertaining. I'm gonna make sure boxing stays fun. Boxing need people like me. And guess what? There's only one me right now, so guess I gotta do it.
The new division, a little bit more mature Rolly, still a great soundbite dropper. I mean, you know, his Twitter handle, sign up for KOs, Luke. It always makes me chuckle when I see that. But, you know, originally he was supposed to be fighting Alberto Puello, who was the full champion. Is now a champion in recess after failing a drug test. But some people said, look, Puello was given a voluntary chance to defend his title. He chose Rolly Romero, even though Ismael Barroso, who ends up replacing him, was the mandatory challenger. But some people going, why is Rolly this much on a layoff, this much removed, walking into a new division and getting a title shot? Rolly was like, when you look as good as me, you get privileges. That's why. I must be special. And Luke, he would go on to tell the New York Post, I wouldn't be in this position if I wasn't the most unique mother effer in boxing. I really would not be in this position. But at the end of the day, I sell. That's the Rolly Romero way. At the end of the day, Luke, this is his third straight fight against a southpaw and fourth overall, considering Rolly doesn't have a ton of pro fights coming in. We know he's going to use the experiments from the Gervonta loss, the bright lights, also the patience and the poise that he feels like he has developed because of that. But growth or not, as we set up earlier, this just may be a slugfest at the end of the day.
It could end up.
That's what this could be all about.
It could be. And then the other question, too, for Barroso being 40, you know, he says, I feel like I'm 30. Okay, you can feel a lot of ways, but 40 is certainly for boxing and combat sports, it's old. We should just say it. It's old, right? So will he, even if he had a great camp and even if he feels like he's in great shape and he stays in the gym or whatever the case may be, he might feel like he can go 12, but then he gets through 6 and he's like, I don't know if I've got it in me, and then just throws caution to the wind because that's all he has left, right? There's a lot of ways this could go. There's a lot of unpredictability to this in terms of we do have some sense of who Barroso is. We have obviously some sense of Romero, a little bit less so given the overall, again, just 15 pro fights. But there are a couple of permutations where they could pull this one in one direction or the other, and it gets kind of crazy. I do think that it's got to be Barroso who has to sell out here a little bit. He's going to be the one that's going to have to press the action a little bit more, which is why another reason why Rolly doesn't have to play that role. I think he's kind of seen himself in that role, BC, not just competitively, but from an entertainment standpoint. I've got to be the one to drive this bus for the crowd. I've got to be the one who is responsible for the entertainment quotient. People will remember my name. And again, there can be a time and a place for that. But up a new weight class against an aging but still tricky opponent with big power in a title fight where everyone's questioning, well, okay, why are you in this spot again? This is not the time to go back to those other bad habits. This is the time to lean in to the new you.
And Barroso a chance to become a full title holder. He did hold the WBA interim lightweight title when he knocked out Kevin Mitchell in 2015. That, looking back, that looks like a high point in his career. Barroso then would fight the full champion Anthony Corolla in the next fight in 2016, and he was knocked out. Luke Thomas, at that point, it may have been okay for the idea to emerge of writing off Ismael Barroso. But he's on a 4-fight win streak since then. This has been a little bit of an unlikely turnaround. 3 knockouts during that stretch. He also lost in 2018 to Batyr Akhmedov, who will open up tonight's triple header. I don't think a lot of people saw this coming, even though he knocked Akhmedov down early in that fight before getting stopped to the body. But it's been the consistency, it's been the confidence, it's been the knowledge of that power. I think at the very least, Rolly has said the right things coming in. Like you said, haven't been a trash talk heavy build. He respects the power of his opponent, is not overlooking him due to his age, and ultimately thinks at the end of the day, this is a harder opponent than Puello, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that remains to be seen. I guess we'll see. That's a brash thing and a debatable thing to say, but nevertheless, a important test, a tough test, the kind of test that if you pass it the way that we think he can would mean a lot. Whether it's more than Puello, I think is sort of a separate matter, but on its own merits, right? Plenty of credit there to be had.
Well, look, that loss to Akhmedov back in 2018 for Barroso was his third loss in 4 fights. So talk about maybe on the point of being written off, but turning it around and coming back with 4 straight wins. He's got a huge opportunity tonight to shake up this division. And look, speaking of this division, so many young stars in and around this division, whether they're still at 135 pounds or whether they have already moved up to 140. Rolly thinks he could become the face of it quickly. In fact, he said, look, a fight against Ryan Garcia at 140 pounds, which he wouldn't be against next, he says boxing needs it. Rolly's an interesting dance partner. If he wins a world title here and continue to build on that momentum, he wants a Gervonta rematch. He's been outspoken enough to even say, look, I'll move up to 147 tomorrow and fight Errol Spence if they'll let me.
That would be a very bad idea.
That notwithstanding, the idea of him seeing Ryan Garcia coming off the loss to Tank or looking at Tank as look, I got to get a second chance there. None of that happens if he doesn't build that tonight and prove that. But do you commend the ambition? Do you commend the confidence in Rolly?
I definitely do. I do. He wants to be great. And also, this is a fun time for 140, which it's not like it fell on hard times or something, but there is a bit of a, what do you want to call it, BC? I don't know if rejuvenation's the word, but a migration in many ways, right? Where Ryan Garcia is going to go to 140, and Regis Prograis, who was kind of on the back burner, is now on the front burner again. Of course, he's been at 140 for some time, but
Tank has fought at 140 before.
He's fought at 140 before.
Eventually going to end up there.
That's right. Teofimo Lopez obviously moving up to 140. There's been a few things that have happened at 140 now where there's a lot of interesting players in that space, and Romero moving in there is part of that. Again, some of that migration, some of that growth. This division's time to do something interesting. So I definitely think he can be a player. It's just, again, you got to prove something tonight. Sure. You got to prove something, not just get that belt. Show us that we have a reason to believe. Great performance against Tank, but it was just through 6 rounds and he lost. Give us a complete winning performance against a credentialed opponent, a veteran, in a bout of consequence. Show us that we can believe, wow, he actually could go through and problem solve, not just bulldoze through overmatched challenges. Really problem solve is what I want to see from him.
And the last breakthrough winning performance from Romero did come in 2021 against Anthony Yiggett. It was the first fight in now what is 3 consecutive against southpaws. But that fight took place back in San Antonio, and Luke, Rolly showcased the power in this one.
Yeah, huge, dominant power. And you could see, just kind of fighting recklessly and wildly. Yeah, look, I mean, these right hands, look at there's no chance to go back, but you can have the outside foot position, and look at this, and you see Romero throwing across his own body and still landing look at that, just dominant punching power.
Well, that's what's interesting. We need to see Rolly Romero to bring real evolution to his game, and that will be, the onus will be on him tonight to show that, unless this turns out to be a slugfest. But Rolly has never really prepared for anything else but this barbaric caveman style. I don't know if you remember the build to the Tank fight. Him and his trainer were talking, we're not training to win rounds. We're training to come out there and do damage. Rolly's almost like a video game fighter in that regard. He's literally out there to just throw punishing shots.
Just
over
button mashing. Again, this fight wouldn't tell you, that's the guy that gave Tank Davis problems. Yes, absolutely, right? Because he has grown so quickly in that Tank Davis fight. He really upped his game. He, for the most part, I think, rose to the challenge. And at a bare minimum, absolutely changed the narrative about what was possible with him or what kind of fight he is capable of delivering. Up to this point, these are fun, amazing fights. And again, huge power, no doubt about it. But this wouldn't be the guy who you'd be like, oh, he can go up there and beat the Prograis and the Garcias and the Lopez's of the world. Well, the guy against Tank definitely was somebody you want to take seriously. And if he can build on that tonight, man, I'll say this. You can like Rolly Romero, you can hate Rolly Romero, but if he wins tonight and he does so in a way that we think is possible, he's going to be relevant Romero for 140 pounds.
Well, our triple header of Showtime Championship Boxing offers more than Romero Barroso. How about this co-feature? It's going to take place in the super lightweight division, a 10-round bout. Former two-division champion Rances Barthelemy takes on young Omar Juarez. But for Rances, 37 years old, he's tasted wins, he's tasted defeats at the high level. He's coming off a 6-round knockout loss to unbeaten Gary Antoine Russell. That with a questionable stoppage. You've got a motivated Barthelemy right now. Excuse me, that's the correct pronunciation, Barthelemy. There's been times he hasn't thrown enough punches. He fought very aggressive against Russell, which was seemingly against the guy that we've come to know. But he says this is the best training camp of his career, and Rances Barthelemy is focusing on one thing at 37, the idea of becoming the first Cuban-born boxer to win titles in 3 divisions. A win over Juarez here may not catapult him directly into that, but it would certainly allow that dream to manifest and take shape. Luke, at 37, is there still time here for Barthelemy?
I will tell you this. I was there that night. This was the Garcia Benavidez card in Brooklyn when he fought Gary Antoine Russell, and then the ref stopped it. And at the time, Barthelemy was incensed. I think he's right. I did not believe that. I mean, obviously, I thought Russell was doing the better work, and I thought was winning the contest. But Barthelemy, he had that fight taken from him. I really believe that. And then before that, he was coming off of a knockout win, or stoppage win. So to me, is it a new style? Is it a new whole thing? I guess we'll have to see. There have been a lot of Barthelemy performances that have been very quiet, very methodical.
It's been hit or miss at times in his career.
Punching, very workmanlike in that way. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get him the bigger opportunities, even if he gets a win here. I do think there has to be a little bit of razzle-dazzle, but he does have a name. And again, should be noted, however likely or unlikely you imagine it, he is still trying to be the first Cuban to win world titles in 3 different weight classes. He has 2. If he can win 1, this will be the 3rd. So that's still on the bucket list for him.
He says that's a dream that gets him to wake up every single morning and go put in the work. Juarez, his opponent, 23 years old from Brownsville, Texas, on a 3-fight win streak since his only pro loss, which came in 2021, a majority decision 10-round loss to Ali Rivera. But that's the same Rivera who the fight before Rances Barthelemy had blanked over 10 rounds and won a wide unanimous decision. We'll see if Juarez can step up in what has to be his biggest fight to date against a big name. And speaking of the name, Juarez said they're going to see that me, Omar Juarez, I am the hardest worker every time I step into the ring. We'll see if he can do that against the veteran. But to kick things off on tonight's triple header, how about this in the super lightweight division? How about Batyr Akhmedov, 9-2 overall as a pro, but lost a split decision to who? Alberto Puello for the WBA title. Believes the judges had gotten it wrong and that he should be the champion coming into this fight facing Romero or Barroso. Instead, he brings on a veteran in Kenneth Sims Jr. This 12-round super lightweight bout could be an interesting style clash.
Yeah, the whole card, 140 pounds for the main card. You got to love that. Again, a showcase for this, not new division, but the kind of new look division that it's been in. And Akhmedov, a 2016 Olympian, I believe. I mean, here is a guy who he wasn't trash talking at the presser. He wasn't angry, but was very clear that he thought he deserved this opportunity. And at a bare minimum, he believes that if he beats Sims tonight, he should get the winner of the main event no matter what. There, in fact, are a lot of boxing fans who do believe Akhmedov should have been in that role. It was a rankings thing in the end because Barroso was owed this opportunity. But nevertheless, you can see that there are a lot of folks out there saying, hey, we got a guy on the card who can already do this work. We know what he's capable of. Let's get him up there. A win over Sims certainly puts him back, I don't know if in the driver's seat, BC, but it puts him in a very visible spot to get something very, very important subsequent to this clash.
Yeah, he said, look, to win the judges over, I'm going to have to leave no doubt. Doesn't mean I necessarily need a knockout of Sims, but he feels that onus to try to win over what he believes last August that he got the raw end of a deal, a split decision loss against Alberto.
To that point, I'm sorry to cut you off, but he was also saying during the presser this week, he thinks that judges in general just don't like his style. He thinks the fans like his style and the judges don't. So there's a question of if it goes to a decision, will there be another one of these weird things where Akhmedov's work is not properly respected? I tend to doubt it in this case, but something to pay attention to. Does it change the way he fights? Let's see what happens with the judging. Couple of factors to watch.
Akhmedov, a 32-year-old Ukrainian. He was born in Uzbekistan, now fights out of Los Angeles, and his only previous loss before that Puello fight came in 2019 against Mario Barrios, another big name inside this division. And Kenneth Sims Jr., we know him, a great amateur career. career. At times he's played spoiler as a pro. Now he's in a featured position, and he says he's ready to go to hell and back. So we'll see in tonight's opener, a triple header, Showtime Championship Boxing, 9 p.m. Eastern, top of the hour, 6 p.m. out west, the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, the backdrop, and of course that vacant title in the main event. Luke Thomas, let's close here. Rolly Romero could end this fight against Ismael Barroso as a full champion in a new weight class at 140 pounds, or the 40-year-old veteran from Venezuela could have his full career moment. What happens here tonight?
I think Barroso is going to make it interesting. I definitely think at times he's going to land big shots. At times he's going to get your attention, and he's definitely going to make Romero respect him. But I just feel like the youth is going to be a big factor. 27 versus 40, that's a lot. But the bigger one, BC, I do believe, I'm not committing on this night to the reinvention of Romero, but I am committed to the iteration of Romero, a newer version where we might see some of the old stuff. We might see some of the things that have got you a little bit the heebie-jeebies before, but I think you're going to see that trademark power, and I think you're going to see, at least in general, applied in a much more thoughtful, scientific, patient way. I like Romero, I'm going to say, round 10.
Yeah, if this becomes the type of slugfest that the prior history of both fighters says it could be, I'd like to see Romero take the big fire in return, stand in there and trade, but I wonder if the younger, potentially bigger puncher will ultimately win out under that style of fight. Either way, Romero, a native of Las Vegas, back in his home city where he is 8-0 with 7 KOs as a professional. One of the biggest characters in this game, whether you love his comedy or not, but he could be a very big power player in this 140-pound division with a win tonight. But we thank you so much for tuning in to Showtime Boxing Countdown. That's Luke Thomas. I'm Brian Campbell. We enjoyed calling the fights and setting the stage. And, of course, you can check us out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Morning Combat YouTube channel and the Showtime-produced award-winning Combat Sports Series Morning Combat, where we are going to have a lot to break down Monday morning from Showtime Championship Boxing through UFC, Bellator MMA, a very big weekend in combat sports. We've got you covered as always. But the only thing left to say now is enjoy the fights this evening. You fired up, Luke? Let's do this.
9 p.m. in the East is the top of the card. All 140-pound fights. Love the showcase for the division. Excited for the night.
For LT on BC from here in Jersey City, we enjoyed our time, but it's time to throw it over to the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. Top of the hour. Enjoy the fights. The vacant 140-pound title, Rolly Romero, Ismael Barroso coming your way.
What do you say to those who say Rolly Romero jumped the line and gets a world title shot in his first fight here at 140?
I mean, I get special privileges. That's all I can say.
Sin City, this coming Saturday, a triple header of fights.
We took this fight 1 month after Puella fight, got the title away from me. Now he's stripped of the title. You know, it is what it is.
A couple years ago, my name wasn't even in this conversation. I don't ever want to lead this conversation again.
I'm well aware that I'm fighting against a hungry young lion.
I have a lot of respect for Rances, but he's just in my way.
Now we get to the main event.
Barroso's a much better fighter than Puello. He can actually crack. I'm just a bit of a shit talker, you know? This ain't a shit talking fight.
You're going to see a battle between two warriors that are very hungry to become a world champion.
I mean, I've always been humble. I think. No?
Dreams can come true no matter how old you are.
Looks like our fighters are ready to step onto the scale. 139.25 pounds for Sims. 138.75 pounds for Batyr. Akhmedov. Omar Juarez. 142.25 pounds. 142.5 pounds for Rances Barthelemy. 139.5 pounds for Ismael Barroso. 139.5 pounds for Rolando Romero.
What can you guarantee they're going to get Saturday night?
Fireworks.